7th grade lesson 2.8 is over fractions, decimals, and percents. So we're taking the fractions and decimals that we worked on in 2.7 and now we're adding in percentages. Our goal for today is I can convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages, and you are going to be able to go back and forth from all three types of numbers by the time we're finished with this lesson. Now, vocabulary. We've talked briefly about these, but fractions, decimals, and percentages are all ways of comparing a part to a whole. In a fraction, the part is your numerator and the whole is your denominator. So a fraction is a part to whole comparison that uses a numerator and a denominator. So the whole can be any amount. That's what a fraction is. A decimal is a part to whole comparison, but the whole is always equal to 1. So whenever we're looking at a decimal, it is out of 1. So for example, 12 hundredths or 0.12, that's 0.12 out of 1. Finally, a percentage. A percentage is a part to whole comparison where your whole is always going to equal 100. And you know this, a percent is out of 100. So let's just jump into this. So to go from a percentage to a fraction, all you have to do is take the number in your percentage and place it over 100, and then simplify if you need to. So, for example, 25% is 25 over 100.
Okay, so let's look at some examples. Now we're converting from fractions, decimals, and percentages. So let's start with a percent to a fraction, because that's so easy. So let's use as an example 97%. Now from the vocabulary, you know that a percent is just a relationship out of 100. So this means 97 out of 100. So I write it 97 over 100. I can't simplify that. There are no common factors, so that's my answer. 97% written as a fraction is 97 over 100. Let's look at 80%. This is 80 out of 100, so 80 over 100. Now I know these can both be divided by 20. 80 divided by 20 leaves me with 4. 100 divided by 20 is 5. So 80% would be equal to 4/5. Let's look at one more, because sometimes you can earn bonus points. So let's look at 125%. This is 125 out of 100. It's an improper fraction. So divide, let's go ahead and simplify first, because I know both of these can be divided by 25. So 125 divided by 25 is 5. 100 divided by 25 is 4. 5 over 4, 4 goes into 5 one time with 1 remainder. So 1 1/4.
Now to go from a decimal to a percent, it's even easier. To go from a decimal to a percent, what you're going to do is you're going to first multiply by 100 or move the decimal to the right 2 places. So a decimal and percent, since a decimal is, if you look back at your vocabulary, it's a part to whole comparison where the whole is always equal to 1 and percent is always 100. If you look, 100 is like 1 with the decimal point moved back 2 spaces. Oops, sorry. You're going to do the same thing to go from a decimal to a percent. You're just going to move your decimal point to the right 2 places.
Okay, now let's convert from a decimal to a percentage. Now the way we do this is we just take our decimal and we multiply it by 100. And so I can go through the process of multiplying by 100, but I'm not going to, because the easier way to do it is to take your decimal point and move it 2 places to the right. So 0.67 or 0 67 hundredths is 67%. That's all there is to it. Let's look at one more. 1 385 thousandths. I take my decimal point, move it 2 places to the left, becomes 138 5/10%. 138.5%. Really easy.
Okay, to go from a percent to a decimal, you're going to do the opposite. So you're going to divide by 100, or you're going to move your decimal point to the left 2 places. And again, if you look, a percent is out of 100, a decimal is out of 1, I could write this as 1, the actual number. If you look, 100, take a decimal point, move it right 2 places, and you get 1. Now, I didn't go over every single conversion because once you've gone from a percent to a decimal, you can change that decimal back into a fraction. We've done that. Or you can change the fraction into a decimal. We've already done those. So we're just looking at a percent to fraction, decimal to percent, and percent to decimal. To go from a fraction to a percent, you're first going to change it into a decimal by taking your numerator divided by your denominator, and then you go from the decimal to a percent by multiplying by 100.
Okay, so the last thing we're looking at is a percentage to a decimal. It's just the opposite of what we just did. So 27%, I'm going to take my decimal point, instead of moving it to the right, I'm going to move it to the left. Because like I showed you, a percent is out of 100, a whole number is out of 1. To go from 100 to 1, the decimal moves 2 places left. So to go from a percent out of 100 to a whole number out of 1, you move your decimal 2 places to the left. 27% is equal to 27 hundredths, or 0.27. Let's look at 316%. I take my decimal point, it's at the end of the number, move it 2 places to the left. 3 and 16 hundredths, or 3.16. Come tomorrow with questions, and I'll see you then.